It is August 11th, 2026. This AI-generated research overview requires human review before anyone relies on it. Today's collection is a partial run covering 38 analyzed papers, so it is a substantial sample, not a complete account of the day. The strongest theme is that model performance depends on more than model weights. Agent scaffolds, memory, training signals, and evaluation boundaries can materially change what a system appears able to do.
The clearest measured example comes from a multilingual benchmark of 170 large repository refactors. Under identical limits of 300 steps and $10 per task, GPT 5.2 resolved 41.2% with open hands, but only 21.8% with Mini SWE agent. That is direct evidence that the harness can nearly double the measured success rate in this setting. It is not evidence that every coding task behaves similarly. Results came from single runs, and some languages and repositories were heavily concentrated.
Harness evolution was another major thread. EvoBench held the underlying policy fixed and tested executable scaffold improvements on held-out tasks. An automated evolution process raised its overall score from 29.7 to 46.3, though it remained below a 47.5 composite human-engineered reference. Meanwhile, Ouroboros reported 86.74% after audit on a terminal benchmark, using a frozen reviewed harness configuration. That score demonstrates a strong final system, but it does not isolate the causal benefit of allowing the harness to modify itself.
That distinction matters. Macaron reported adaptive configuration search covering all 122 selected tasks that its base setup had failed, across 450 attempts. Yet no optimizer update occurred, and cumulative search coverage is not the same as one deployable configuration solving everything. Editorially, these studies suggest that versioned, reviewable harnesses deserve evaluation as first-class artifacts. The relationship is a same-day analytical connection, not evidence that the papers cited influenced or reused one another.
Two mathematics studies explored self-distillation without relying on a stronger external answer source in the usual way. One formed pseudo-solutions from agreement among the model's own rollouts. In non-thinking mode, its 4 billion and 8 billion parameter systems averaged 49.49 and 54.31 across 5 benchmarks, reported as 3.2 and 2.3% above supervised on-policy distillation. But for the 8 billion thinking configuration, the margin narrowed to just 0.02%.
The second method probed teacher-proposed reasoning branches and calibrated token targets using verified outcomes. At 4 billion parameters, it achieved a macro pass-at-8 score of 54.30 versus 49.57 for the comparison method. Its average score across the 8 samples was only 36.13, so the strongest evidence is improved coverage of possible solutions, not uniformly better individual attempts. Both studies are math-specific, and neither supplies enough repeated run uncertainty to establish broad reliability.
Visual reasoning produced an especially useful design pattern. Privileged evidence during training, followed by an ordinary inference interface. Evidence RL tested whether answers actually depended on proposed image regions by applying counterfactual interventions. With matched training, it averaged 73.80 across 9 benchmarks, compared with 61.22 for correctness-only reinforcement learning. Those regions came from generic object boxes rather than question-specific ground truth, so the evidence supports the intervention method more strongly than the quality of its localization.
A mobile interface agent used the next screenshot only during training and reached 54.11% success versus 37.43% for a matched baseline over 3 runs. Separately, Concore 1 jointly predicted linked language spans and image masks, reaching 88.8 joint F1 against 59.9 for the strongest listed competitor. A plausible follow-up is to use those correspondence masks as proposals for counterfactual evidence training. That is an editorial research opportunity supported by compatible inputs and outputs, not a result either team measured.
Generation research warned against confusing appearance with correctness. Across 16 video generators in SciVBench, automatic perceptual scores occupied a narrow range from 3.79 to 4.12, while scientific and causal correctness ranged from 1.24 to 3.34. The authors interpret this as evidence that plausible-looking video can still misrepresent scientific mechanisms. The conclusion is credible within the benchmark, but clip lengths and resolutions differed. Proprietary models used only a 150-item subset, and automatic judging remains imperfect.
Constraint checking also helped conversational image editing. A structured verifier reduced visual inconsistency from 3.7% to 0.9% on held-out sessions. In a concurrent 14-day randomized product test, the full system reported a 32.70% increase in click-through rate, alongside gains in image takeaway and turns per user. Those are measured product outcomes, but they come from one internal application, with unavailable prompts, absolute metrics, and confidence intervals. Transfer to other products or languages is still open.
Memory systems offered two contrasting approaches. Agent memory distillation converted successful teacher trajectories into workflow, subtask, and function memories for frozen smaller agents, reporting average gains of 27.2 points on AppWorld and smaller gains on two other tool benchmarks. Rome Earl instead maintained 4 persistent utility coordinates updated from outcomes. Its last epoch success rate rose from 0.830 to 0.862, while memory size reportedly fell 84.4%. Neither design establishes causal credit for individual memories under changing conditions.
Security results underline why persistent state needs boundaries. One study reconstructed information by replaying encrypted reasoning state across compatible models. In public trajectories, 328 of 6,708 contained at least one judged real sensitive item. There was no plaintext ground truth for exact reconstruction. The scan was not a prevalence estimate, and providers had mitigated the attacks before August reproduction. A separate sandbox found cross-user collaboration attacks reduced benign task success, connecting API state security with workspace governance at an editorial level.
The evaluation warning is broader than security. In adaptive GPU kernel search, 16 of 53 promoted in-distribution wins regressed or failed on held-out configurations. That 30% figure is an existence result from one machine and limited suites, not a general failure rate. Together with EvoBench, it motivates stronger separation between optimization feedback and final evaluation. Open questions include whether refreshed secret tests outperform fixed holdouts, how often evolved harnesses regress, what rollback costs look like, and whether gains replicate across multiple seeds.
The concise takeaway is this: today's strongest evidence says scaffolding and evaluation design can rival model choice. Privileged training signals are most convincing when tied to executable evidence, and adaptive systems need genuinely held-out tests. Important next experiments should compare frozen and evolving harnesses causally, stress self-distillation with confidently wrong labels, test memory under stale or conflicting information, and standardize generation settings. Remember that this was a partial daily run with several truncated sources and many single-run results. For the papers, caveats, and links, see the linked daily summary.